Hey guys, welcome back to another Honkai style video, and for today, in celebration of version 3, we are going to be doing a tier list for all the characters, including Madam Herta and then the Remembrance Trailblazer. Unfortunately, Aglia is gonna have to wait for the pinned comment because she's not out at the time of making this video, but it's okay. We still have a lot of characters to go through, and it's been a while since I updated my previous tier list. And on that note, considering the last time we made this tier list, we were back here in terms of characters, or like up to about Robin, I would say. There's a lot more to work with, so I'm going to be going relatively fast compared to my previous tier list, and for characters that don't require too much explanation, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. If you do want a more detailed explanation, then I'm sure you can find someone who's willing to explain more in the comments, or if it's worth elaborating on, I can try to do so. But yeah, we're just going to go through every character relatively quickly. This tier list will be graded in a general format. We're not accounting for, let's say, E6S5 or anything of that sort. It's just going to be what most players can reasonably obtain. That's not necessarily to imply it's free to play only. It can also account for maybe E1S0, E0S1, E2S1, things like that. But overall, this should make for a decent reference on what to expect. Oh, actually, just a moment. So you guys know how every new version they reset the Jade packages so you can get a 2-for-1 deal with your first purchase? If you're thinking about buying them, I have just the right thing for you. This video is brought to you by TopUpBuy. You may have seen them before on Pridewind or Enka Network over the past couple weeks. They're partnered up with TopUp as well. Essentially, they're a gifting platform that allows you to buy premium currency at a discounted rate. All you have to do is enter your user ID and region, and they will gift it to you ASAP. You can also gift it to other players if you want to buy currency for them as well. It's 100% legit. The partner they get the currency from has been formally authorized by Hoyo to sell the items, so you don't have to worry about getting banned or anything. Use my link on screen or in the description below, and there you have it. 20% off everything essentially. Best of luck in pulling for Herta, but for now, let's get back to the video. Without further ado, let's begin. We have the tiers here. We have, I tried to keep them as self-explanatory as possible, but you know, there will be things that differ here and there, but again, tier lists, they're usually subjective, or not usually, they're always subjective, so take this as, once more, a general reference. So, we're gonna get started. We have Physical Trailblazer. Physical Trailblazer is going to be in bottom tier. You use them for 5 minutes during the tutorial, and then you realistically have no reason to ever use them because now we have Harmony Trailblazer and Remembrance Trailblazer, so basically never prioritize Physical Trailblazer. Bailu is going to be, I would say, in mid-tier. She's still a good healer, and she still does her job as a healer, but the fact that she doesn't have a cleanse and that she doesn't do much else besides healing makes her relatively easy to outperform by any other sustained character. So while she's not going to be anywhere here per se, that, you know, she can definitely find some use, especially at higher Eidolons, ultimately she does get outperformed by many high and top tiers. Bronya is going to be in high tier. She used to be much higher, of course, but we have no shortage of turn advance and crit boost supports out there, so she's still very good, and she is competitive in the metagame, and she still has teams that she can be relatively best in slot in, for example, like Boohill, who doesn't particularly care about anything except on-demand turn advance and things like that. So she's a good character, and next to Himeko, one of the two characters you should definitely prioritize with your 300 pull select if you're a brand new player, and I think, yeah, she'll stay that way because supports of her her line of work will never fall off if we're being, you know, practical. Clara's also going to be in high tier. She's a very ambiguous character. Some people say that she's, you know, overstayed her welcome in the higher tiers of a tier list, and that, you know, now that we have other characters who can do her job better like Yunli, she's not that relevant anymore, but I disagree. I still think that you could still make her work, especially for pure fiction, and physical damage at the current moment, it's just Argenti and Yunli, neither of which are characters that people actively seek out for. So you can always settle for Clara in physical damage comps. Gepard's gonna be in mid-tier. The sustain category has not updated really at all since Lingsha, but I would say at this point people are starting to accept that Gepard just doesn't really do enough compared to higher tier sustain characters, and we're expected to get more in version 3. I'm fairly certain we are, and I don't think that he's gonna really be staying that much longer. That being said, he still is usable, but as soon as you find higher tier or top tier characters, then you can replace them. Himeko is going to be our first top tier character. She's a good, especially for her accessibility, she's a really serviceable unit, and one of the best standard banner 5-star characters, if not the best, depending on who else you have. So she's good for pure fiction, a very good mainstay there, and then depending on what MOC cycle or even APOC cycle, you can make her, you can use her pretty well. I think that, you know, this might be maybe a little too generous of a rating, but I wholeheartedly believe that Himeko is a very useful character, and as the tier implies, she's valuable in many situations. She can cover a lot of bases. Welta, on the other hand, not so much. She's gonna be in mid tier. I really can't in good conscience put him here because he technically has no one who can do the same job that he can. At the same time, as the tier implies, he does get outperformed by many high and top tiers. He just hasn't been standing the test of time as well as people thought he would, and we're now entering a point where power creep is getting fairly substantial, so we'll have to account for that. Maybe might put him here, but for the time being, we'll put him here. Arlen, oh, not Arlen, Yanqing, I'm sure it is a mystery where we're going to put him. We're putting him right here, right? Nope. We're putting him here. Same goes for Arlen, and then as well as I'm going to skip Asta for a moment and put Dan Heng here, and Hook here as well. These characters just don't do enough for their respective jobs, and we have too many damage dealers, even a couple 4-stars that could do a little bit more depending on, you know, how you design them, and then of course you have team comps who can do better. There's just no place for these 3 characters, and him in particular, I might be biased. No, I am biased. No, Yanqing's just not. He's just not good. Okay, Asta. Asta's going to be in mid tier. She used to have a decent amount of value thanks to her fairly niche supportive capability, but now we're getting to a point where general support units can just do her job so much better that she could be used for players who don't have access to that many units, like if they're just starting out, or if they're a free-to-play character, or not character, or if they're a free-to-play account, then you can find a reason to use Asta, but overall, she is one of the support characters that's definitely falling off quite quickly. You can still use her though. Herta, Little Herta, is going to be in top tier. Even with the advent of Madam Herta, or Big Herta, or the Herta, regular Herta or 4-star Herta is still pretty good because she's a very easy to access character. You can get her to E6 fairly easily. She's a 4-star character, and you can probably get her from just playing the game long enough, and she's a good entry point into pure fiction. She's like that character that you can rely on if you don't have anyone else, and combining these two together will obviously net you some good results at a baseline. For newer pure fictions, I'm sure they're going to find someone to BS their way through higher difficulty scaling and whatnot, and that will force you to use stronger characters, but until proven otherwise, Herta will stay in top tier, if not maybe like the peak of high tier. March, low tier. She's just not good enough. She, you know, sustain options again are fairly limited, especially if you're a brand new player or if you don't have that many characters. And so use her as obligated, but the moment you pick up Aventurine or, you know, Hua Hua or Fuxuan or any of the other sustain characters, March Preservation will never see the light of day, especially because we have March 8, which is, where is she? Right here. So you're paying an opportunity cost by using Preservation March, even though I think she's cuter in this outfit than this one. Obviously she's gonna lose to her fancy schmancy counterpart. So we'll put her here and then replace as soon as better options are obtained, namely her upgraded version or her path switch. Same applies to Natasha. Use her during the early game and then afterwards drop her at the earliest convenience. She's just there to get you through the early game, basically. Pela's going to be in top tier. She's a very useful debuffing support character who can be useful in multiple situations. You can use her for, of course, the budget Akron team, and you can also just use her to deal with any kind of boss that needs to be debuffed and like defense broken, things like that. And overall, again, we're factoring the accessibility. She's not really pull value because she's a 4-star character, but because she's a 4-star character, you can usually go for her as you go for 5-star characters and get more of them. So Pela is a character that until we get better 4-star characters, or until we get better 4-star debuffers, she will be in top tier for quite a while, since there's just not many who can challenge her in her niche that doesn't require you to go out of your way. So she'll be in top tier. Qingque is going to be in mid tier. She's still, I believe, not counting like gimmick strategies, she's still technically, I believe, the best 4-star DPS character in the game. Well, again, we've only gotten like what, 1, 2, 3, like 4 characters that are 4-star, quote unquote, and all of them are support characters. So she's still technically the best 4-star damage dealer in the game, but usually most accounts can get their hands on at least like 1 or 2 of the future 5-star characters. Oops, that was a mistake. So I just think that Qingque you know, the argument could be made that she's a good DPS character for her rarity, but we're now in version 3.0 and there are just too many damage dealers. The damage ceiling has escalated a lot, and she's ultimately a hyper carry who relies on heavily inconsistent RNG to be effective. So back in the day when there weren't that many alternatives, you could say, yeah, she's worth the resetting hassle, but now not so much. Sampo, I'm gonna put him in low tier. He just really doesn't have a reason to be used, even in dot teams. Like, you know, if you, let's just say you have only Kafka and you don't have Black Swan, even then I would say you could find a reason to use the other dot characters, but yeah, I just think that Sampo doesn't really do anything in the current metagame. Serval is going to be in low tier as well. You could use her because she should still be free. I'm sure she's still free, and you can use her during the early game to kind of get you through the early game and the story and the early progression, but as soon as you get better characters or better DPS characters, drop her immediately. Alright, hey guys, this is post-production Jin. I am going to step in and interject for a quick moment because I actually do want to reevaluate my placement of Serval. Serval is no longer in low tier. She would have been in low tier before 3.0, but surprisingly, she's actually one of the better free-to-play options, or if not one of the best free-to-play options, to have as a companion with Madame Herta. Reason for that is because one, Herta needs at least one other erudition character on her team to give a huge crit damage buff for everyone. And then if the attacker is an erudition unit, then she can apply a lot of stacks of interpretation on top of it as well. Serval can also spam her ultimate really frequently, having a pretty low energy cost, and essentially what people do is build Serval in a way that she can spam her ultimate over and over again. It doesn't matter about her personal damage, she's essentially just a battery for Herta. That being said, it's an effective role, and while she's not best in slot, I would say it's enough to bump her up to mid tier. Sushang is going to be either... No, I'll put her in low tier. Same thing. She is a single target attacker in a game where, you know, we're currently in a very erudition focused meta as it is. And you know, dedicated single target attackers like Sushang, definitely not someone you should be prioritizing. You could use her while you can, like in the early game of course, and then from then on drop her. Tingyun is going to be in top tier. She has her new fancy hotter version over here, no pun intended, but base version is still really good. She's a 4-star hypercarry driver who can provide energy, which can technically work really well with Remembrance Trailblazer, you know, scaling Mem's turn advance rate based on energy. She's a good support, provides a lot of damage boosting to any singular character, so you'll never find a reason not to use her unless you have an army of 5-star supports, but most people don't, so we'll put her in top tier. Preservation Trailblazer, use them only as necessary. The same argument applies for them or as Physical Trailblazer in that you have to choose between one of 4 paths, and there are 2 that are just definitively better by every stretch of the imagination, so you should stick to Harmony or RMC. However, in the early game, if you don't have, well, first of all, you won't have access to these paths just yet, but in the early game, sustain options, once more, are quite limited. So not that they're really sustained, they're more kind of like a bruiser tank character. They're preservation, but they actually perform much more like a destruction character. That being said, they can still be used in a pinch, but do not invest in them beyond what is necessary. Seela's going to be in high tier. She's still usable. It's getting really hard to find reasons to use her though, because she's getting progressively more and more HP crept in that she can't really reset on minions anymore because those minions are hard to one-shot. So perhaps we could put her in mid tier, but I think it's not quite there yet. The power creep hasn't escalated that high yet. I'll put her here for the time being. You can still use her quite well. She has surprisingly a lot of support options, namely because all she really cares about is SP and multiple turns. So buff her as much as you can through hypercarry supports like, let's say, Sunday or RMC or, you know, just characters of that variety. So she's still pretty good. I don't think you should go out of your way for her. She's not, you know, she's not essential. But for people who do have her already, you can keep using her until it becomes impractical to do so. Jingyuan's going to be in top tier. However, I say this with a massive asterisk because he does require a very specific party to become top tier, and without that party I would actually say he goes here. We'll see how much the meta develops for summoner characters because he's not a memo master. He just has a summon character. It's not like RMC who uses Mem, which is a memo sprite. Jingyuan doesn't have one, so I don't know if they're going to isolate him or kind of like keep him away from the new summon meta that's going to come in 3.0, or not 3.0 in version 3. So we'll have to see. I'll give him a very provisional placement in top tier. If you have him and if you have the right characters, namely Sunday, who can buff him, then he can do pretty significant damage and is definitely competitive with the best of the best. So at the moment we'll put him here, and until proven otherwise. Silverwolf is going to be in probably high tier. She's potentially the most unfortunate character in the game. I remember when she first came out in 1.1, people were like, oh, this character cheats, this character's gonna, be relevant for a very long time, she's gonna be super valuable, and then we're not even like 6 months in, or like, 7 months in, and she basically got power crept out of existence. She still is a good character though, compatible with Acheron, compatible with Sela, compatible with quite a few characters, and she will technically always have a reason to be played for the situations that you would need to use her in, and her debuffing capability is still top notch. It's just not circumstantially that applicable compared to someone like Pela or Jelto or things like that. I would say Sela is the very definition of high tier, where she's relatively competitive in the endgame, but ultimately non-essential. Locha is going to be high tier as well. He doesn't suffer from Bailu syndrome in that he can actually cleanse people, and on that note he's very SB economical, so you can use him quite well, but he just doesn't do enough for your team besides healing and keeping them topped off and cleansed. Especially because we have characters like Ling Xiao, we have characters like Aventurine and Huohuo who can do a little bit more. Then I feel like Locha is a character who, if you already have him, you can continue using him as needed, but then once you get into, once you have more characters and things like that, or if you don't have him and you're thinking, should I pull for him? Not really. I don't think he's someone who you need to go out of your way for, unless you're in desperate need of a healer, or if you get lucky. Yukong is going to be in bottom tier. She's the definition of a support who can do so much, and yet it's just flat out impossible to access that so much. On a general level, she just doesn't do anything, basically. Well, no, that's not true. She can be a very niche fringe support, and she can provide a myriad of buffs that can be beneficial for your team, but we're in an age where there are characters who can provide the same buffs as her for a fraction of the effort. Blade's gonna be in, this might be a hot take, I'm gonna put him in mid tier or maybe high tier, probably mid tier. So he has seen some resurgence midway through 2024 in that he was able to be used in Pure Fiction with Jade. I just don't think that's enough though. We need HP scaling support characters, or HP scaling mechanics in general. There needs to be an HP consumption engine, and there just isn't one right now for Honkai Star. So until then, Blade is just, he can be used, he does damage, it's just not competitive with the rest of the cast at the moment. Kapka's gonna be in high tier. She's very close to falling off the meta because damage over time is just not being supported at the moment, but I would say she deserves her position in high tier and is holding on, albeit barely, very similarly to Sela, where you can, if you have her geared up and if you have the right teammates for her, then she can still do her job quite well. I don't think she's going to be topping off the DPS charts anytime soon, but she's nowhere close to the bottom either. Luca is going to be in mid tier, so he can kind of do a lot of different things. He can do break, he can do debuffing, he can do damage over time, he can do a little bit of everything. He's not particularly excellent at anything, but he can find some uses. It's just that once you get something better, then you can stop using him, but I think he probably deserves a lot more attention than he's actually getting. Danheng is going to be in high tier. Does good damage, takes a lot of investment to do so. If you hyper invest in him, then he might still be in top tier, but at the moment I would say that he's right here next to Kapka, and speaking of one other character, he's going to be next to someone else as well. So I think Danheng, I just recently made a Why No One Plays video on him a couple months back, and I think for him specifically, he needs someone who can cater towards his niche of SB consumption much more efficiently than I think Sparkle can do, or someone who can do it just like Sparkle and that you can use both of them. At the moment he's here though. Fushuan's going to be in top tier. By the way, in case you're wondering what the top 10 is for, we'll do that at the end of the video. Fushuan is still a great character. She's one of the top 3 preservation units at the moment. Maybe not so much top 3 anymore, it depends on what you need, but I think that her combination of crowd control barrier, cover tanking, as well as self-sustenance, that's another thing. And then not to mention the crit rate boost that she gives to your team, which is good for hyper carries who need to max out that 100% crit rate. Not many other sustained characters can do that, and so yeah, we'll put her here. She's still a very good character. Lynx is gonna be in mid tier. Very similar to Bailu, where she can do quite a decent job at healing and supplying buffs to your team, or not supplying buffs to your team, but she can do a bit for your team. It's just that if you have Lota or any of the higher sustained characters, you essentially will never use her. Jingliu is going to be in high tier. She's the character I was referencing when I was in Danheng's section, that these two characters are going down, they're losing market share, but they're still holding high tier. I think they're still able to, with a decent amount of investment, contribute for your team. It's just that if you don't have them and if you're wondering if you should go for them, you don't have to. If you have them already, then you're more than welcome to keep using them, and that's what this tier essentially is for. Topaz is in top tier. She's been maturing quite well in terms of market value in the sense that follow-up engine is broken and she will continue to go up higher and higher as more follow-up attackers are implemented because she just does her job really well and can back up effectively anyone, providing a lot of follow-up attack damage boost but also dealing her own damage very nicely. Guinaifan, she's going to be in mid-tier. She is also a character who can do a mixture of things, I would say. Probably, it's mostly damage over time and debuffing. That's about it. Not too bad, not too great. She's in mid-tier. Huohuo is going to be in top tier. She has had a very rocky history where she started out great and then fell off a little bit because people thought that she just didn't do enough compared to, let's say, Aventurine or Fuxuan, especially because healing as a mechanic is just inferior to shielding or cover tanking. So that kind of hurt her a little bit, but then it went back up again after people realized that they need her energy a lot. So she's back in top tier, or no, she never was out of top tier. It's just that people were not sure if she was going to be, top 10, for example. I think she's still a great character, and there's still room for her to be developed in the metagame as more characters come out. So we'll have to see, but she's sitting very comfortably in this tier. Argenti is going to be in high tier. Still one of the best characters in Pure Fiction, but that's it. If he was able to be used more efficiently in MOC or APOC, then I might actually put him up here, and even though he is one of the few characters who can make use of RMC relatively well, I just don't think he has enough pull value to warrant him being up here. You have to go out of your way for him, and people won't. Hanya's gonna be in, I would say, mid-tier. She has a use. Actually, I might even put her here, I'm not sure. She has a use in terms of SB supplementation, but SB supplementations become a bit more plentiful now, especially with the advent of Sparkle, and Harmony Light Coins can also do that as well, and a lot of characters don't need SB supplementation in the current metagame, or at least those who do are not like the best characters in the game at the moment, and so therefore I feel like you can use her, but beyond that, I don't think she'll really do that much. Runmei is going to be in top tier. Break support, general support, what more can I say? She's one of the best characters for, if you pair her up with Few, you essentially turbo break anybody in one shot and do so much damage. I don't think that she's been aging as resiliently as, let's say, Robin, for example, but where did she go? But she's still a character that you definitely want to seek after because she covers so many bases and is just a really easy character to use. Shui is going to be in mid-tier. Gets outperformed, she can do good break damage, but so many other characters can do break damage better than her. So I would say she just stays here. You can use her if you have no one else to use, but anyone above her will probably outperform her quite well. Dr. Ratio is going to be in top tier. I would actually, if I'm being more, I guess, cynical about it, I might put him in high tier just because we're getting a lot more characters who are kind of breaking into his niche relatively quickly, but at the same time, he still has the merit of being a free character for anyone who is out before 2.1. Now, for those who are here after 2.1, then I would go on record to say that Dr. Rish is more high tier. Because he is stuck here, if we were like a mid-tier, like a middle between top and high tier, I would put him in there. I'm just gonna put him in top tier for now because he still is part of the strongest combat engine in the game right now, follow-up attacks. And yeah, he just improves a lot with the right team. Black Swan's going to be in high tier. She finds kind of a partnership with Kafka, so wherever Kafka is, she is, and vice versa. Without her, I would actually maybe, maybe Kafka goes into mid-tier without Black Swan, but still, I think Kafka and Black Swan, despite the dot engine being neglected for almost all of version 2, and hopefully it won't be in version 3, I still think that they hold relatively okay, and we just have to hope that in version 3 they actually add more dot support. I can't really disclose leaks, but let's just hope. So yeah, we'll keep them there for now. Sparkle's going to be in top tier. Of the 3 Harmony characters, Ranmei, Robin, and Sparkle, she fell off the most for sure. People don't really consider Apex tier anymore, or yeah, people don't really consider her tier 0 or even 0.5 for a lot of the game's content, and I would be inclined to agree. That being said, generally speaking, she still is a very valuable character who can provide a huge baseline for your party, and with that in mind, I'm going to keep her in top tier. I think she still is in a caliber above the characters over here. Nisha is going to be in low tier. A very interesting character in the game's lore for Penaconi's history, but he just doesn't really do anything, and so I'm going to put him in low tier. He's better than these characters, but the instant you find other units who can do damage, then you can replace him. Akron's going to be in top tier, and she will stay top tier for hopefully a while, because if she gets power crept, then that's just a very clear indication that the game is escalating out of control. So she's still a top tier character, even in light of all the extra DPS characters we've gotten and the developments given to break and follow up. Her damage ceiling is still one of the best in the game, and she scales extremely well with any kind of vertical investment. So I think she'll stay in top tier very convincingly, and yeah, she's just still a really good character. If she's on banner, consider pulling for her. She covers every single game mode at the very least at like tier 0.5, so she's phenomenal. Aventurin's going to be in top tier. Aventurin might convincingly be the best sustained character in the game. He makes the team basically invincible. He's the Zhongli of Honkai Star Rail. You realistically should not take any damage whenever you're using Aventurin. However, he has a very crippling bug that is not being addressed, and a lot of players or a lot of content creators made videos discussing it, and players too. They need to fix it really soon because it's starting to get inconvenient, to say the least. All the same, he's still one of the best characters in the game at the moment. Gallagher's going to be in top tier. If you have a break team established, he will do lots of damage just by being a healer. In terms of sustain, strictly speaking, he actually would be more like here, or even here, or around here, give or take. But because he has the capacity to deal damage in a break team, I'm gonna put him up here. Linkshot outperforms him in every metric possible, but he's a free character, he's a 4-star character, and that automatically contributes to his value being a top tier and being very accessible. So Gallagher will be great, and he will stay great for as long as break teams are relevant. Harmony MC, we're gonna use male. Harmony MC is still top tier. They are essential in driving a break team because there is no other character besides them and Vyuk who can provide super break damage for other characters, and so you essentially need to have them to even have a break team to begin with. Boonhill. Buno's going to be in top tier. The second best DPS in the game against a single enemy. He does way too much damage and can effectively one-tap any boss in the game at the moment. Or we'll have to see because HP inflation is getting really obnoxious, but he's one of those characters where no one really is going to pull for him, but he's extremely practical for those who do pull for him. Robin's going to be in top tier. Debatably the best character in the game at the moment. Again, I know 3.0 just started and we're probably going to get power crept, give or take, but Robin is still one of Honkai Star Rail's most valuable characters, if not the most valuable character. She's certainly in top 3. I would say she'd be top 3 best characters in the game. She does so much for your team. She gives crit damage bonus, she gives follow-up attack crit damage bonus, she can turn events your entire team, she can give a ton of attack, she can just do so much, and I think that until there's a support or until we have a massive support power creep, she will remain one of the most relevant characters in the game. Firefly is going to be in top tier. She does a lot of damage, and even though some characters have higher personal damage, she contributes her DPS alongside other members of her team who are also dealing a lot of damage. So Firefly is a good character, very stable, very consistent, not so much in PF, but in terms of MLC and APOC, there are very few characters who can do the same thing that she can. Jade is going to be also top tier. People used to argue that she has terrible usability in any game mode outside of pure fiction, but I'd be inclined to disagree. I actually do believe that her usefulness in APOC does need to be highlighted a little bit more, especially because APOC usually holds 5 enemies anyway. Jade's pretty good, and I think she's one of the few supports in the game that will get progressively better as time goes on. Like for example, you can use her with Herta for a lot of content. I myself skipped her when she first came out, but I'm inclined to go after her again now that I realize that she's usable in quite a lot of content. Yunli's going to be in top tier as well. She's the most underrated character in the game, or rather she was, but then people are realizing she's like creeping up in terms of like the tiers. Like she started out I think in like 1.5 for every single game mode, but then she went up to 1.0 and then 0.5, and then now she's like starting to creep into tier 0. This character is broken, and I got clowned on a lot because I put her in the top 10 best characters video and people were like, what are you talking about? Yunli's not even that good. And then now look, she's like tier 0.5 or tier 0 in every single game mode. This character is some BS. Zalto's gonna be in top tier as well. He is a much more versatile support than people give him credit for. He's not just an Akron bot, he's also a ratio bot, he's a damage over time bot. He can also just do a lot for your team because he applies damage amplification, he increases ultimate damage, and he also does a bit of damage of his own. Actually not really, he doesn't really do enough personal DPS, but still, he's a great support and presently the best debuffer in the game, I would say. March 8th. March 8th is going to be in high tier. Much better than her preservation iteration for sure. And I think, yeah, she's a good character for budget players. Not so much for like higher investment accounts like people who have a much more established roster or maybe E2S1 or E1S1, things of that nature. However, for budget players or people who don't have that many resources, she's a fantastic character to use and you should make liberal use of her. Facial, top tier, one of the best DPS characters in the game, debatably the best DPS character in the game. It just really comes down to circumstance, but her usefulness in MOC and APOC more than make up for the fact that she's not the best in Pure Fiction. Lingsha is going to be in top tier as well. She is a break support, she's a follow-up attacker support, she's a healer, she's an auto cleanser. Even when she's crowd controlled, this character does so much, and especially in break teams, if you have the right party, sometimes Lingsha actually does more damage than your DPS. So there that is. She's a really good character. People were saying she's 5% better than Gallagher. I would politely disagree. Potentially, if I might actually go on a hot take, again, no pun intended, Lingsha might be one of the top 3 best characters in the game. Molza is going to be in high tier, similarly to March, where if you have a much more invested account, then you're not really going to use him, but if you don't have a highly invested account, or if you're a free-to-play player, then he's a great follow-up attack driver for characters like Facial. Good character. Rappa is going to be in top tier. She is almost identical to Yunli. People thought that she really wasn't going to be that spectacular, and then now it's become abundantly clear that she's practically a must-have for Pure Fiction and APOC. Not that like you're missing out if you don't have her, well you kind of are, but I say that Rappa is a really powerful character that people glossed over because she's part of the filler cycles that came out between 2.5 and 2.7. Also, she kind of came out of nowhere. We had context with at least, or we didn't really have context with Jiaotou and Yunli, but we had context with, or we had a pre-existing fan base with Sunday and Fugue. But Rappa is that character who sort of, if you took her out of the game, a lot of players would be none the wiser to her. Having said that though, it doesn't detract from her practical value, and she's one of the best DPSs in the game. We're almost there. Wow, my voice is giving out. Doing this, I swear, recording a tier list or recording any video for like an hour straight is really straining on the vocal cords. I must have drank like at least half a gallon of water during this session. Let's wrap it up. Okay, Sunday is going to be in top tier. I don't think anyone will disagree. He's one of the best buffing supports in the game, and he will likely get even stronger as you get more summoning characters. So he will be very comfortably here. Then we have Fugue, who is, with her, you can keep Harmony MC in as RMC forever. She does so much damage. If you have her with Runmei and then Lingsha, these three bitches are going to blow up everybody in like 2 seconds. I swear, the damage the 3 of these can do is, well, where did she go? The damage the 3 of these characters can do is, you don't even need a DPS character, just run these 3 and you're done. That's how good it is. This character's so good. And she deserves to be, she's the waifu. Okay, now we're on 3.0. We have Madam Herta. Madam Herta is going to be in top tier. I think, depending on numbers, I forget exactly what the situation is, but she's tied with Facial as the best damage dealer in the game on an average like global level. She does so much damage. That is the best way to put her. She does way too much damage. Some people are saying that because of her very straightforward way of applying damage, that she's at high risk of getting power crept in the near future, like let's say 3.5, 3.6, 4.0, depending on how fast the game wants to power scale and power creep. But she's a good character. If you're just joining the game right now for 3.0, then Herta is definitively a good choice to pull for. Even if you're, honestly, there's no difference if you're just starting out or if you're an established player. She's a good character and she can cover a lot of different bases, namely APOC and PF. So that's good for her. I haven't tested her in MLC, but I don't see a reason why she wouldn't be good in MLC as well. Then you have Aglia. Again, I have to, you have to wait until she's at least releasable from the CES. I think the earliest we can talk about her is 2 weeks from now, or 2 weeks at the time of upload, which means I need to, what's it called? I need to, we'll do the pinned comment thing again. I'm feeling pretty optimistic about her though, so you can look forward to that. And the final character we're going to talk about is RMC. RMC is going to be up here. Right next to Harmony MC. RMC is great. Remember, Trailblazer does a lot and is, I would say, firmly established as the best free-to-play support or free-to-play character in the game. They just do a lot for a character that you can get for free. Like, their supportive capability rivals E0, S0 supports like Robin and Sunday and Bronya, or especially they just beat out Bronya altogether. But like compared to Sparkle Robin, and Sunday, RMC is just as good as them, which if you think about it, for a free-to-play character that you get for free is inconceivable. It's mildly concerning because I have a feeling that they're doing that on purpose, maybe to help us out with the higher difficulty ceiling of version 3. However, it is a welcome addition to the game, and I think it's a very fun character. Okay, so now that we've covered every single character up to version 3.0 minus Aglia due to the inability to talk about her publicly yet, it's time to go through our top 10. To repeat, it's contextual. It can depend on the situation, right? There are some moments where some characters are more valuable than others, but I think overall, the 10 I choose shouldn't be too controversial. And when I say top 10, I'm referring to like if you have any intentions of playing this game for a long time and being like an established player, then you definitely need to go for these 10. Also, I don't think it's going to be that big of a surprise to see the types of characters I put in top 10 because they are the least likely to get power crept. Without further ado, let's begin. If you're wondering why I sound different, it's because it's actually post-production, Jin, and I'm redoing the top 10 segment. So before I had a top 10 segment, I was pretty okay with it, but then after giving it a couple days and also sharing my thoughts with some other friends, I decided to amend the list a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of redo it. I mean, you're not going to see the previous version, so it's like this never happened, but in the meantime, really quickly, just to make sure I snipe out the people who skip all the way to the end of a tier list video, I'm going to put Serval over here, just so that people don't wonder why she's down there after Herta came out. With that said, let's get into the top 10. The first character is going to be Huahua. I think, if you remember from my Huahua segment, I talked about how, despite originally not exactly being in contention for a top 10, I think over time towards the tail end of version 2, she kind of got back into the meta, and now especially with the RMC, I think her value has shot up pretty substantially to where she's the first character in top 10 and deserving of that spot for the time being. Second character is going to be Runmei. Runmei is also a very general buffer and she can do a lot for your team. She's essential for most break teams at this point, and the break engine is very strong. So if you do want to run a lot of break teams, you're definitely going to want to have her. Next character is going to be Aventurine. Aside from the bug, I think that Aventurine is currently the best sustained character in the game, and he might be dominating that field for a long time. He's an excellent staple for follow-up attack teams as a kind of tank DPS, but you can also just use him as a general sustained character. That's the whole purpose of him. He's super good. Next character is going to be Harmony MC. If you don't have Fugue, they're essentially obligatory. You need to have them to even have a functioning super break team because they're the only ones who can provide super break. And without them, you straight up just cannot run a break team. That's the whole purpose. So while I won't exactly call them the best supports in the game, they're the heartbeat of the combat engine, and so you definitely need to have them. That being said, they're free, which is convenient. You don't have to pull for them. Next character is going to be Robin. Robin, like I said, is by far one of the best characters in the game, and she will continue to be for a long time. It's going to take a while to power creep a character like her, even if they do release another follow-up attack support. She does so much for a bunch of characters who aren't even in the follow-up attack engine. As a result, she's comfortably sitting in the top 10. Lingsha is going to be the next character in top 10. I take back what I said about Aventurine being the best sustained character. He's the best character in terms of survivability. Let's get that out of the way. But if we're talking about overall usability and utility, I think it's a pretty close tie between him and Lingsha. Lingsha just does so much for your team. She can be a sustained character for follow-up attacks. And in break teams, like I mentioned in her segment, she can sometimes outperform the break DPS characters. So you have someone who does damage. She can follow up, she can break, she can heal, she can cleanse. She can do so much for your team. And because of that, yeah, I would say she would be in contention for top 3. Next character is going to be Sunday. Sunday is a staple support character, one of the best in the game, and he will be here very convincingly. Fugue is going to be up here as well. If you combine her with Lingsha and Runmei, like I mentioned, these three completely destroy the entire game. Her purpose for being up here is identical to Harmony MC, where basically you need her to even have a functioning super break team. And because she's the heartbeat of a combat engine, she will contribute much for your account, and on top of that, she's just a really broken character in general, so she'll be here as well. Next character is going to be Remembrance Trailblazer. Having both of them in the top 10 might be kind of redundant because they're the same character, but I can get away with having both of them in top 10, I think. They're really good in their respective niches, if not one of the best, and they're also free. Being free is good for your pull value, because you don't have to pull for them. Last character, because we're at 9, it's a tie. I'm gonna say it's a tie. A tie between Herta and Facial. It depends on who you have. Very contextual. These two characters are practically tied for the best in the game in their own respective niches. Herta is a lot more AoE focused, and then Facial is much more single target focused. So they have their kind of pros and cons. That being said, I would say right now Herta goes up in top 10. probably because if I had to decide who stands the test of time better, it's going to be Herta. That might be a hot take, and it's also potentially recency bias. I still think Facial is an excellent character and definitely top 2 best DPS in the game, with Herta being the other one, but I think if I were to base predictions on 3.0 and also kind of using my overall speculation, Herta will survive a bit better than Facial. Okay, so that's going to be it for the tier list. Actually, let me just move Ratio down a bit. I think he should be down here. Where is he? Right here. That should be the tier list. I don't think it's too controversial. I mean, again, you can maybe argue one character being one tier up or down, things like that. But I think in terms of top 10, it's a pretty solid lineup. And also for top tier, high tier, things of that nature, the tier list, I don't think it should be too contentious. But then again, being a tier list, it's subjective. People value different things. And of course, there's always going to be people pissed off about why their character is here or there. That being said, I hope it was insightful to those who needed it and entertaining to those who wanted it. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments down below. Or if you want to start a fight, by all means, go ahead, more interaction. For the time being though, if you enjoyed the video, a like and subscribe would be much appreciated. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter @FarsVerum, join my Discord server, and check out my other Honkai style videos if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, good luck on pulling for Herta, and I'll see you again soon in the next one. Take care.